Another monster met a swift, messy end under her blade. The blonde touched down near the dungeon's pulsing heart. Nana gave the place a once-over, assuming cleanup was done. Then, surprise, 2 jumbo hornets crawled out of the last monster's remains. They weren't any weaker than the original troublemaker. One zipped in with a jab, while the other slipped behind her back. In a blink, something skittered up her spine. Her energy tanked in seconds, like someone yanked the plug. She crumpled, motionless, breathless, done. Her final flicker of thought landed on her brother's injured face. There'd been a dinner promise made. She clearly wasn't keeping it. The promise, like her pulse, quietly faded away. Elsewhere in sleepy Miku, life carried on. Rose strolled home, arms full of groceries and good intentions. A familiar voice called out before he could escape the market. The shovel guy gave a nod, joking about Rose stocking up. Was Nana finally coming home? Ro confirmed it with a half-smile. She said she'd be back after the big dungeon run. The man was Koji Shimura, a D-rank researcher. A quick check-in revealed he was nearly patched up. Koji promised a catch-up session and wandered off with a casual wave. One of Koji's bitter teammates griped, "Why risk life and limb for scraps while Ro dined like royalty?" The other shrugged, his sisters with 7 stars, top-tier guild perks included. Koji shut it down. Ro once dragged his sister out of a life in the gutters. The guy grew up scavenging just to survive. No silver spoons in sight. Admirable, sure, but now he mostly freeloads off his more successful sibling. If she doesn't make it back, it's a one-way ticket to rock bottom. Eventually, Ro stepped back through the front door. He dropped the groceries on the table with a familiar thud. A glance at his watch confirmed he was way off schedule. The detour for fresh ingredients had cost him time. With no time to waste, he jumped straight into dinner prep. Once the feast was ready, he admired the spread with a proud nod. Another look at the time. Still no Nana. That wasn't like her. Maybe the guild roped her into another long shift? 3 hours slipped by, night fell. He stayed put, staring at dinner now going cold. His phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. He answered. A formal voice claimed to be from the Explorers Association. After confirming he was family, the voice calmly reported Nana's death in an S-rank dungeon. Apparently, they'd confirmed it 2 hours back. They also requested silence. News like this could stir up real trouble. Before hanging up, they mentioned something about benefits and following up within a month. The phone slipped from his hand. His world stopped. Then came the memories. Sharp, fast, impossible to stop. Like the day she nervously asked to call him Big Brother. Or when she flattened some bullies and casually checked if he was all right. And that last promise, "I'll be back soon." She'd hugged him and asked for a special dinner when she returned. She'd said it was just an A-rank, routine, safe, no big deal. That's when something clicked. Her story didn't match the official one. She said a rank. They said S-rank. That wasn't a small mix-up. And for S-rank cases, especially involving 7 stars, there was supposed to be an official investigation. Instead of launching a full investigation, they rushed to inform the family, far too fast for any real answers. Or maybe something bigger was being swept under the rug. 5 days later, the Explorers Association HQ saw an unexpected visitor. At his desk, Rakuto Hotu of the Meiku branch eyed Ro, wondering what brought him in. The official tried to brush it off. They'd already covered the tragedy over the phone. But Ro had other plans. He came to sign up as a researcher. That caught the department head off guard. He processed it with a deep, weary sigh. He reminded Ro that research meant flirting with death, and frankly, Ro wasn't exactly qualified. Nana had been the star. He was the steady support. She'd probably want him safe and far from danger. But rules were rules. Family members got a free pass regardless of skill. Ro knew that loophole, and didn't hesitate to point it out. With no wiggle room, Rakuto reluctantly signed off. As a parting gesture, the official told him to drop by if he ever needed help. Ro turned back with a frosty glare, leaving no words behind. The doors shut behind him a second later. Rakuto's face said it all. This decision felt like trouble brewing. Downstairs, Ro picked up his freshly printed ID card. Age 21, rank E starting at the very bottom. Truthfully, the talk had gone a bit deeper than it looked. Rakuto had explained the partner bailed using a special item. Yoram prepped a rescue, but it was already too late. Official records confirmed it. Nana had been sent into a sealed S-rank dungeon. Yutao figured she just lied to spare her brother some stress. But Ro refused to believe she volunteered to die a noble death. The idea that she'd sign up for a suicide mission and let her partner ditch her? Not a chance. Ro didn't buy it. Whatever cover-up this was, he planned to dig up the truth himself. A bit later, just outside a modest D-rank dungeon, fully geared researchers were lining up at the entrance, ready for action. Meanwhile, the reserves in matching blue jumpsuits were busy debating if frontline work was badass or just plain stupid. Some craved the thrill. Others preferred not being Monster Chow and happily stayed in the back. Their dungeons had been around for 30 years, yet the fear still stuck around. Even veteran explorers never got truly comfy staring down monsters. So, most chose the safer route, rear guard for life. Their job? Chill until the front line clears the boss. This mission was no different. 2 seasoned folks, and 1 fresh recruit assigned to the back. Actually, make that 2 new faces, Ro and some mystery guy. The burly blonde asked if Ro was new. Ro shot him a glare and nodded. The guy in glasses told him to stay close. Rookies weren't expected to do much today, just watch and learn. Before the sentence wrapped, a scream echoed from deep inside the dungeon. It wasn't alone. Monstrous roars joined the chorus. The rookie panicked, suggesting they help. The blonde snapped back, "Rookie talk like that gets people eaten." The rookie explained there'd been a hiccup in the system, no training this year. That didn't sit well with the veterans. Ro figured his lack of training was just a side effect of his unusual entry. Turns out, the system really was broken. Researchers were generally considered the combat-savvy kind, but only those ranked D or higher got combat assignments. Support crews, mostly civilians and E ranks. Rank E were practically the interns of the dungeon world. While the veterans explained the hierarchy, more shouting rumbled up from the dungeon. Orders came from up front. Rear guard needed to move in. Now. At the dungeon's final room, the team found the guardian already down for the count. Beside the beast's corpse, the rest of the crew were huddled in quiet grief around their fallen leaders. The scene was graphic. One researcher had clearly met a gruesome end, with disturbing detail too vivid for comfort. One rookie took one look and promptly lost his lunch. The team's tank didn't appreciate the display of weak stomachs. He nearly lunged at the kid, but his partner stepped in with perfect timing. She calmly reminded him the kid was green and didn't know better. She then gave the veterans a pointed look, no need for a meltdown. Once the frontliners left, the blonde brute gave the rookie a stinging welcome to the job slap and barked out orders. While hauling ore, the confused rookie quietly wondered why he got chewed out for doing nothing. Ro explained flatly. Losing composure around fallen comrades was seen as disrespect. Luckily, the team was surprisingly reasonable. He could have gotten much worse. The rookie blinked. This guy clearly knew his stuff. But how? Ro hoisted the ore and murmured that someone once told him. He recalled his sister telling him over dinner that a trainee had died during practice. A trainee got cocky, walked into a trap, and died. Another newbie saw it and vomited. The fallen trainee's friends snapped and killed the rookie on the spot. Nana tried to stop it, but was too late. Sure, it was extreme, but fighters tend to ride hard for their own. Glancing at the monster's hulking corpse, Ro casually asked if cleanup was part of the gig. The blonde finally believed it. Ro really was a rookie. Until now, he thought the kid was faking the whole calm act. Clearing a dungeon always came down to smashing the core. But before that, the Guardian had to go. Monsters vanish 30 minutes after death, but with Guardians, the timer starts only after the core is destroyed. The body's basically junk. And no, you can't drag one out. Dungeon rules. Beating a Guardian usually came with a shiny prize, gear or weapons if luck played nice. Occasionally, the dungeon gods even dropped something rare. With only 30 minutes before the dungeon sealed up, everyone made a swift exit. Outside the gate, the elders waved the newbies off, promising to handle the loot delivery. Paychecks, they assured, would land in accounts within 3 days. The bespectacled elder gave a parting warning. Support roles weren't as safe as they looked. If they wanted to stay alive, they'd better hit the practice room. As the elders departed, Ro lingered, staring quietly after them. With a clenched fist and a quiet fire, he vowed to grow stronger. 2 days later, he found himself back in front of Mako's department chief. The chief asked for thoughts on the dungeon. Ro simply called it weird, and dangerously so. He added that nothing in there seemed worth dying over. That line sparked a flicker of déjà vu in the chief's memory. Opening the next door, he couldn't help noticing the resemblance between Ro and Nana. They stepped into a spacious training hall, echoing with the promise of sweat and sore muscles. Rakuto finally voiced it. Something about this whole thing just felt odd. He pointed out that with Nana's legacy, Ro could live easy, so why throw punches instead? Ro, it seemed, wasn't interested in cruising on his sister's name, especially with rumors branding him deadweight. The whispers stung, and once Nana's death went public, he'd be left as the sole heir and the target. Rakuto was quietly pleased. The kid had chosen strength over comfort. That's when he decided to introduce the next piece of the puzzle. The man was Charlie Liss, 37, a tough veteran from the Mako Explorers Association. From now on, he'd be Ro's mentor, gruff on the outside, but top dog in Mika's division. Charlie gave Ro a once-over and asked if this was really a babysitting gig. The chief shut down any doubts with one fact. This was Shining Light's little brother. With a grumble and a sigh, Charlie gave in. Barking at Ro to tag along, he shooed Rakuto away before he could test his patience. Just like that, the room cleared, leaving mentor and rookie in awkward silence. Charlie figured the kid must have pulled heir privileges to wind up in his training room. He even tossed out the possibility that the kid had been royally duped. Charlie doubted the boy even grasped what kind of golden ticket he was holding. He explained the system, ranks E to S, with the mythical 7 stars standing above them all. Top explorers left perks behind for family, assuming they named an heir before kicking the bucket. One clause, often ignored, granted training and association entry, but few thought it worth much. Charlie laid it all out and nudged him toward a decision. Ro's blank stare made Charlie realize he'd skipped a step. Rubbing his neck, Charlie broke it down. 3 flavors: offense, defense, and speed. Since words went his style, Charlie went for the hands-on demo. He opened with a bang, 1 kick, 1 shattered dummy. Offense, check. Next up, he let 2 mech units turn him into a test dummy. Defense, apparently. Speed? All about fancy footwork and dodging what you didn't want to taste. After the destruction parade, he let the kid pick his poison. One glance at the rubble and bruises, and Ro wasted no time. He picked defense, no hesitation, no regrets. Training kicked off the next day, no time wasted. It all started with cardio because of course it did. He ran and regretted every step by the end. Somewhere between nausea and collapse, he started questioning all his life choices. Charlie actually approved. Turns out the kid wasn't as clueless as he looked. Most folks pick defense for safety or speed to fight or flee. Ro's pick? A rare one. That's how most ended up 6 feet under. Bad choices, no defense. Clearly, Ro had made the smarter call. With luck, that decision might actually keep him breathing in a fight. From now on, Ro had to figure out his own grind. Charlie had zero plans to babysit the newbie. If a jog wrecked him, what was even the point? The coach gave him 2 months to stop wheezing long enough for real training. Missed that deadline and Charlie was out, no second chances. Being Nana's brother wouldn't earn him any pity points. Motivated, or maybe scared, Ro picked up the pace. Days blurred together as he powered through the pain. Between workouts, he crammed facts about dungeon horrors and deadly creatures. Then he stumbled on a report about a beast called Dogumbi. It was S-rank, mastered air and water, and could tank a nuke. That beast alone explained why Nana had chained his explorer dreams to the ground. Meat became his best friend as he chased more muscle. Word spread, this newbie ate like a champ and recovered at a spot usually reserved for the rich and broken. No powers, no fame, but somehow living better than half the squad. Suspicious. Daily park runs became a thing, especially the stairs, his new mortal enemy. The machines got their share of action too. Ro wasn't slacking. 1 month in, and the grind was real. The progress? Honestly, pretty impressive for a kid who used to wheeze walking. That very day, a familiar face, Koji Shimura, decided to check in. Ro welcomed the surprise visitor without hesitation. As Ro served tea, Koji chuckled. Seems the kid had changed enough to be unrecognizable. Koji paused mid-thought, his eyes dropping with a weight he didn't bother hiding. He eventually broke the silence, wondering aloud when Nana was coming home. Ro shrugged off the question. Last he heard, she was overseas on association business with no ETA. Noticing the unease, Ro nudged him. Years of friendship meant he could just spill it. Koji finally confessed. Ro's fancy spending habits and daily trips to the rich people recovery zone were making waves in broke circles. Ro pieced it together. Koji thought he was a walking target. Normally, Koji would relax if Nana was around, but rumor had it one of the 7 stars got hit. Suspicious, Ro asked for the source. Koji had overheard a rank researchers whispering. The association was clearly trying to bury the news. Koji pressed again, this time sounding more serious than nosy. Ro just smiled. If something had happened to her, he wouldn't be standing there functioning. The conversation faded, replaced by a quiet that didn't need filling. Koji nodded, remembering how those siblings always looked out for each other first. He apologized for prying, mumbled about errands, and promised a proper visit soon. With that, Koji slipped out, quietly shutting the door behind him. Ro barely waited a second before pulling out his phone. He scrolled down and tapped a number labeled Idiot, number 3. The voice on the other end sounded half offended, half victorious. After 45 ignored calls, the guy assumed this had to be about the 7 stars. Before the sarcasm finished brewing, Ro hung up mid-rant. The second call went smoother, mostly because Ro dropped a threat involving a very annoyed older sister. Idiot #3 had been digging for weeks. Turns out one of the 7 was dead, but the name was a mystery. The cover-up was textbook, though. Even a scratch on a star was national news. Now that Ro was asking him instead of Nana, the dots were connecting in the worst way. Done with the circus, Ro warned he'd call the real source, his sister. The line went dead, and Idiot #3 immediately regretted ever introducing that punk to his sister. The exchange confirmed it. Someone was digging into Nana's death, and it wasn't just out of curiosity. Whispers of a power play surfaced, though the question of Nana's fate still hovered like a stubborn cloud. 2 months had passed since training began, and the grind was finally starting to show. Charlie stepped into the hall, spotted his student, and cracked a grin. Someone had clearly been putting in work. The kid barely resembled the nervous rookie from before. Training had carved out a new version of him. Just barely, he met the threshold for the next phase, officially trial-ready by the skin of his teeth. Charlie came bearing news. The kid was cleared for one kind of training. That was the good part. The downside? Yeah, it was going to hurt. A lot. The program was simple. Get punched, survive, repeat. Explanation over. Charlie sent him flying across the room with a single hit, practical demo complete. Charlie strolled over, casually noting that the lesson would end when he could tank that punch. The philosophy was brutal but clear. Survive the beatdown, and life might just play nicer. Whether in dungeons or daylight, survival crowned the toughest. Strength didn't count for much if it ended in a grave. As a warm-up, Charlie set him up with a sparring bot, no pressure. The rules were generous, dodge all he wanted. But hitting back, strictly off-limits. Ro spent the match evading like a pro, until it hit him that this might be missing the point. Constant dodging wasn't training, it was just survival and sneakers. Mid-thought, the bot had already closed the gap. Recalling Charlie's advice, he braced himself instead of bolting. Arms crossed, he let the full force hit, testing how much pain built character. He stayed grounded, blocking every strike like a human wall. Watching from the sidelines, Charlie nodded. Clever kid was training speed and toughness in one go. Defense often got overlooked, but it was more than muscle. It was a survival skill. Just as Charlie was settling in for a nap, his phone lit up with bad timing. After a week surviving on 3 hours of sleep nightly, Charlie was one errand away from storming the association office in full meltdown mode. The moment the call connected, Charlie's fury cooled into sharp focus. Mizuyasu Village was already half swallowed by a fresh S-rank dungeon popping up inside an older one. Double trouble for the locals. Keikohotu barely settled into his office chair when a knock pulled him from his thoughts. Charlie stepped in, delivering the green light from Kazami himself. No room for delays. Having a 7 stars member would be ideal, but Charlie's silver tongue was almost as good. Settling on the couch, the street-smart type knew this mess couldn't wait any longer. The gate had stubbornly stayed open for over 2 weeks, refusing to close. Kazami's team had braved the dungeon but returned battered and broken. The next run, a painfully long 45-day wait. Charlie wanted to jump in himself but couldn't fill a 7-star spot, so waiting was the only option. Meanwhile, family drama brewed. Kazami's younger kin had vanished, forcing him into a personal search mission. Fast forward 45 days, a low-key D-rank gate popped up outside the city limits. A team of explorers had stepped inside, pushing deeper into the unknown. For Ro, this was rookie territory, his first official dungeon run as a warrior. Silence reigned until a loud, excitable teammate shouted that the boss monster was nearby. Turns out, the hype was spot on. Waiting for them was a 6-star boss, a fierce horned rabbit that ruled its turf like a boss. The moment the beast appeared, most seekers charged in, ready to rumble. Everyone seemed to be racing to land the biggest hit damage contest apparently. With pros like these, the fight should have been a breeze, yet 3 rookies were left behind as the vets rushed in confidently. Their smooth moves screamed higher rank, C or B, maybe. So why were they tackling a low-level dungeon at all? Suspicious. The axe guy finished the fight fast, decapitating the boss like it was nothing. With the boss down, it was back into the dungeon's depths. Heading out, Ro couldn't shake a growing unease about how easily it all went down. The weak rabbit seemed like an easy win, but the veterans acted oddly, fighting solo, ignoring their backs like they had nothing to lose. Something definitely felt off about their behavior. The sharp-eyed boy cut through Ro's thoughts, noticing the Seeker's unreal speed and the suspicious lack of monsters on their path. Just then, a hand landed on Ro's shoulder, breaking his focus. The brown-haired man gave a sly smile and gestured for Ro to step up in the lineup. Despite feeling uneasy, Ro followed the older man's lead without protest. Soon, Ro and 2 other rookies found themselves circled by 5 vets plotting something behind their backs. Just as they neared the exit, a strange creature popped up right in their path. The monster looked like a bizarre mashup of a playing card and a spinning wheel. The elder's expression said it all. They'd been waiting for this exact moment. One newcomer dropped in terror, instantly recognizing the monster's reputation. Panicked, he claimed he could help, pointing at Ro as the likely sacrifice. The dreaded invisible monster was the real reason those vets dragged rookies into the dungeon. After a run, Nana recounted to her brother their unlucky encounter with the invisible monster. The creature forced the team to vote on who'd be its next meal, a brutal kind of lottery. It started like a roulette wheel, deciding how many from the group would be sacrificed. Once the victims are picked, the real monster materializes to finish the grisly work. The clock ticks 60 seconds for voting, with no clue what happens if they stall. Those still battling past the timer, they're trapped in the dungeon forever. It turns friends into foes, yet some thrill-seekers chase it down on purpose. The lure, rare loot earned through sacrifice, a twisted but tempting reward. Ro asked Nana if any chosen victim ever stood a chance to survive. Survival odds? Slim at best. Voted victims had to fight the monster, usually ending in quick defeat. The vote kicked off, countdown ticking down from a minute. A glowing window popped up, showing portraits of everyone involved, forcing a brutal choice. This round, the monster demanded 2 unlucky victims. The veterans quickly singled out Ro, and the nervous guy as expendable bait. The countdown reset instantly, adding to the tension. Everyone but the chosen 2 bailed out of the dungeon without hesitation. Right then, the monster finally showed up from its hiding spot. It had been lurking inside the spinning roulette card all along. Ro braced for the fight, but his partner hit the floor, whining about their slim odds. Ro shot a glare, silently asking if his buddy really wanted to check out early. The nervous guy insisted the boss was way too strong, 4 times stronger than guards, and defeat was impossible. His words barely finished before a fierce punch landed squarely in his gut. Surprise! Ro's lightning-quick kick sent the complainer flying across the floor. That kick saved his whiny partner from getting hit next. After parrying a monster strike, Ro quickly returned to his fallen teammate's side. Sword raised, Ro made it clear he wasn't backing down despite the monster's strength. No time to breathe. The invisible beast lunged at Ro once more. Meanwhile, Kazami and his crew wrapped up their run at the S-rank gate near Mizuyasu Village. Quick heads up, this isn't Ro's fight. He was in a low-level dungeon elsewhere. The story just jumped locations for a moment. Charlie stood by the portal, waiting for the explorers to come out. Soon, a foot emerged from the dark entrance. Kazami Shun and his team exited, their faces heavy with disappointment. Kazami handed a spare weapon to his assistant and revealed Tsuyoshi had been sacrificed. An invisible monster forced a grim vote. The team hesitated, but Tsuyoshi bravely chose himself. Worried, Charlie asked Kazami if the risky Child of Luck threat had been dealt with. Despite reassurances from a 7 Stars member, Charlie insisted on seeing it firsthand. He knew vetting was essential. After all, the Child of Fortune was humanity's top nightmare. A previous Child of Fortune sacrificed dozens of top-ranked explorers to rise as a deadly assassin. Tsuyoshi's strength made him a dangerous candidate. If he became Child of Luck, Charlie might have to end a 7 Stars life. Kazami sent his assistant to inform the chief that S-class explorers were no longer the top tier. After pulling on his jacket, Kazami faced Charlie once more. He mentioned a recent letter he had received. The letter announced the revival of a powerful force called the Shining Light. Back in the dungeon, Ro's fight against the invisible monster raged on. The relentless attacks rapidly drained Ro's stamina. Another heavy hit landed. Ro was tossed aside, clutching a chest wound. The monster wasn't just close range, it could strike from afar too. A tentacle shot out, aiming to finish Ro off. Luckily, Ro dodged just in time. Despite his friends whining, Ro had to admit the monster was tough, but if it had 5 times the Guardian's strength, he'd already be toast. Basically, the beast was just messing with him. Its limbs stretched unnervingly far with ease. Ro figured keeping distance wasn't going to cut it. Oddly, the monster's main body never budged the whole fight. Sensing its immobility was a weakness, Ro chose to close in. Up close, Ro aimed to stab the monster's core. For a moment it seemed like a hit. Then horror replaced hope as something unexpected appeared. A second jaw snapped out, shattering Ro's sword instantly. Disarmed and vulnerable, Ro found one leg suddenly trapped. The monster toyed with him, lifting Ro up and swinging him like a ragdoll flag. Fed up, the monster slammed Ro into the ground with a brutal force. Ro's well-trained body took the hit, but even he couldn't handle that kind of power. The Bangs guy, watching his partner get wrecked, couldn't wrap his head around why Ro kept fighting. Every move Ro made seemed useless against this beast. The monster, sensing its victim was spent, lifted him close to its gaping mouth. Mouth wide open, it ready to swallow Ro whole. Ro never imagined this would be his final moment. Just before passing out, a comforting vision flickered before his eyes. His younger sister appeared, reaching out a hand and inviting him home. Flashback, 4 years earlier at City Cemetery. A month prior, Kasumi Okoma died rescuing Angie in the dungeon, a couple known for their care and support. At their grave, Ro reassured Nana that the tragedy wasn't her fault. Nana knew the truth but feared losing Ro just like Okoma. The thought of losing him haunted her. That fear made her fiercely protective. Ro meant more than anything. She knew Ro would follow the explorer path, and she vowed to stop that from happening, no matter what. Ro gently promised her it wouldn't come to that. Nana was his anchor, and he wouldn't ignore her hopes. The vision shattered as a scream pierced the air. The Bangs guy lunged, landing a punch on the invisible monster. Sadly, his sword broke into shards on impact. Shaken, he stared at the ruined remains of his blade. At that moment, the monster kicked him hard in the gut. The blow sent him crashing against the far wall. The Bangs guy blacked out on the spot. Ro, feeling hopeless, seemed ready to give in. The monster sank its teeth into Ro's right arm with fierce grip. Ro struggled to pry the jaws open, but it was no use. Dying before uncovering his sister's truth wasn't an option. Nothing would stop him now, not even this monster. Refusing to go down here, Ro bit fiercely into the monster's limb. The monster yelped in surprise and loosened its deadly bite. Ro tore off the monster's tentacle with a fierce chomp. That break freed him from the monster's deadly hold. Falling back, Ro braced for the monster's counterattack. Then, unexpectedly, the invisible beast vanished from sight. Its eyes had become clear. Those tentacles were the creature's weak spot. That bite had taken out the monster's core. Game over for the monster as well. Ro whispered a final apology to Nana, calling it a draw. Just then, his body started healing almost instantly. Sitting up, Ro noticed a weird blue system window floating nearby. The window announced he'd gained hyper health after the win. The healing item kicked in automatically, lifesaver. That miracle was why Ro survived at all. He'd also unlocked a new skill called X-Ruse. Weeks later, Ro still hadn't figured out what X-Ruse actually did. No description, just the name. This close call reminded him how fragile he really was. Sitting on his bed, Ro's phone buzzed with a call from Koji-san. After their chat, Ro decided to head straight to the site. Koji greeted his friend with an easy smile. Koji explained they weren't quite ready and gestured for Ro to sit. Koji checked on Ro's wounds. Ro said Hyper Heal had him good as new in days. Koji sighed, noting most dungeon folks were unreliable. A solid team was rare, and all the big explorers had their squads locked down. A frontline member cut in, signaling it was time for the support team to move. Koji promised to chat later, but insisted they get to work now. Inside the dungeon, a strange scene unfolded before their eyes. The dungeon was packed with resources and an easy boss, making Koji grumble about being stuck in a support role. The scenery was gorgeous, and the place was safe enough. But grabbing the first mushroom you spot, recipe for poison as someone had learned the hard way. They faced hours of dull resource gathering. Koji regretted inviting Ro to this snooze fest. On the bright side, Ro could pick up some unique resource collecting tips in this quirky dungeon. Ro grabbed another mushroom, but Koji quickly dismissed it as worthless. The main squad downed an enemy and told Koji to gather resources as the frontliners pushed ahead. Koji waved Ro over, signaling it was time to move. As Ro stood, the mushroom in his hand started acting weird. In a blink, the mushroom vanished right from his grasp. Looking around, Ro spotted the mushroom back where it grew, only now it looked odd. Confused about dropping the mushroom, Ro shrugged it off and followed Koji. The squad cleared the final room and tasked Koji and his team with cleanup duty. For 20 minutes, the helpers gathered mushrooms and other handy ingredients. Ro realized dungeon environments dictated their resources. His last one was mineral-rich, this one a plant haven. With a drawer full of goodies, Ro headed to show Koji what had gathered. Distracted, Ro failed to see the rock underfoot. Tripping over a rock, he dropped the mushroom box and tumbled right beside the fallen monster. His hand brushed against the monster's cold, fading body. Suddenly, the creature vanished right before everyone's stunned eyes. The unexpected disappearance left the whole group frozen in disbelief. The corpse was meant to linger for a full minute. This was way too soon. Assuming their watches glitched, the helpers quickly made their exit. Ro dashed out, telling Koji he had more work and couldn't join the group's trip to the association yet. After a quick farewell, the boy hurried home. Checking his system window, he found 2 flexible myceliums and 1 useless one waiting in his inventory. These came from the mushroom he picked and the monster's nearly vanished remains. Monster bodies were once trash, but with X-Ruse, he could now turn scraps into handy stuff. With a bit of luck, maybe even a new skill would drop. Soon enough, Ro figured X-Ruse wouldn't be a free-for-all. Without enough strength to protect himself, he knew others might exploit this rare power. Sitting down, he mulled over how to handle this tricky situation. Going solo in the dungeon wasn't an option, not yet. Using X-Ruse in secret was the only safe bet, too risky if anyone caught on. That's when a solid plan started to form in Ro's mind. It might bug Koji a little, but Ro was determined to make it up to him. Meanwhile, in the Kazami domain in the 7 stars, a bandaged young man with messy bangs sat up, staring out the window. Right then, Kazami stepped quietly into the room. Kazami demanded why the boy had argued with his father and ended up in the dungeon. The rebellious kid fired back that his life was his own to live. Kazami Sr. said he'd actually respect his brother's choices, even if they were risky. Kazami Sr. urged his son to value life beyond research, hinting family mattered more than reckless ambition. Those words clearly sparked anger in Kazami Jr. After some hesitation, he asked his brother to hold on, ready to reveal something important. Without hesitation, he declared his intent to leave the Kazami family behind. Later, Ro took some time to exercise and clear his head. Ro realized he needed Koji's help absorbing monsters. 2 key problems stood in the way. First up, score fake IDs to ditch real ones and lower the risk factor. Second, convince Koji to buy dungeons. Even low-ranked forests outproduce deserts, since environment shapes what grows. Explorers sell dungeons, but a sketchy buyer often leads to regrets. Trustworthy allies with strong networks became crucial. Suddenly, Ro spotted someone heading his way. It was the guy from the dungeon, the one who dealt with that invisible monster. Yasuke showed up to thank Ro for saving him and to ask for a favor. He was eager to jump back into adventures with Ro. Ro was a bit taken aback by the request. Yasuke noticed Ro lacked super strength but admired his never-quit spirit. Ro suspected Yasuke had tracked him down, likely to size him up. Though not wanting to offend, Ro suggested Yasukage look for a stronger ally and back off from chasing him. Technically, they were even. Yasukage helped too. Ro also disliked quitters. Ro reiterated his wish to be left alone. Yasukage looked a bit down but wasn't ready to quit. Later, Ro caught up with Koji, who had tracked down a dungeon for sale, though it was tougher than expected. Dungeon appearances were shifting strangely, messing up sales and hiking info prices. The shift seemed suspicious, and might threaten humanity's future. Out of nowhere, a stranger cut into their talk. Rumors swirled. Could Ro have a secret stalker on his trail? Ro revealed the guy had been in a band with him once and had since trailed him everywhere. Koji joked it was just popularity. Ro cornered Yasukage to uncover his true motive for wanting a dungeon adventure partner. Yasukage, nervous and repetitive, insisted Ro's strength was inspiring and that he wanted to be just like him. Ro pushed back, insisting he was no hero, just a regular guy, a scout working quietly from the shadows. Ro sensed Yasukage wasn't average. He'd met many strong researchers, but never someone fighting as fiercely as Ro against all odds. Yasukage longed to become that kind of desperate fighter himself. Tired of living in his brother's shadow, Yasukage craved his own spotlight. Something about Yasukage's words struck a familiar chord. Was he talking about the same person Ro knew? Back when Nana showed up with a photo of the 7 Stars group, the whole gang finally gathered for a rare group photo, capturing every single member. Turns out Shun Shun and Yasukage were siblings from the Kazami family. Despite the family tie, they couldn't be more different. Their personalities were polar opposites, making one wonder about the Kazami family's parenting style. Ro declined again, wanting no part in mentoring. He just craved a peaceful, low-key life. Yasuke struggled to find any words that could sway Ro's mind. Koji stepped in, signaling it was time to get down to business. Ro waved off Yasuke and headed straight into the dungeons. Inside the cave lay a massive octopus-like monster corpse, a real hassle to move. One worker grumbled, another rushed off for his daughter's birthday. Ro graciously offered to let the man handle it, nothing valuable left to salvage anyway. Grateful, the man promised Ro a treat next time as thanks. Ro had been scoring only common scraps lately, but hoped this monster would yield something better. The moment Ro touched a tentacle, the monster's body started fading away. Inventory update: 3 dried octopus tentacles, 1 damaged octopus skin. The real prize? The bronze body skill, boosting physical durability like a champ. Combined with defense arts, this skill could seriously boost physical toughness. Just then, an explorer re-entered the dungeon unexpectedly. He froze, shocked to find the monster's body vanished without a trace. Clearly baffled, he wondered what had just happened. Ro concealed a dagger behind his back, playing it cool to throw the guy off. The explorer flashed a watch, confirming the corpse shouldn't have vanished yet. Ro scrambled for a believable excuse, though none seemed convincing enough. Truth was, nothing would sway this guy's suspicion. Ro half-joked that he'd just returned and found the body gone. The man wasn't buying it. He threw a punch, accusing Ro of cheating. He insisted he saw the monster die only 10 minutes earlier. Giving one last chance, he demanded the truth come out now. Without warning, Ro stabbed him with the hidden dagger. He followed with a sharp neck punch, sending the man crashing down. The man hit the floor, stunned by Ro's unexpected strength. Ro brandished the dagger, silently daring him to get up. Calmly, Ro turned and walked toward the exit like it was just another day. The man watched him leave, wondering if the wild rumors about Ro were real. His eyelids fluttered, succumbing to unconsciousness. Later, Ro quietly washed the blood from his hands. Catching his reflection, he faced the hard truth. Murder had been done. Oddly, a faint thrill lingered beneath the grim reality. In this lawless world, murder had become just another Tuesday. No excuses, murder was murder, plain and simple. But one thing was clear, nothing would stand in his way. A month passed and Ro was still deep into dungeon sweeps. Ro deliberately paced himself, finishing last to avoid past mistakes, though some doubted him, chalking his delays up to excuses. A sprained ankle slowed him down this time. His teammates urged caution and punctuality, handing off the collected loot to the lead researcher once cleanup ended. By now, Ro was a trusted fixture among the crew. Newcomers doubted entrusting Ro with the loot, but he'd earned trust by always owning tasks and playing straight. Lately, many sought to join his team, hoping to catch a bit of his good fortune. Someone finally asked why Ro bothered working at all. After all, wasn't he Light's big brother? Maybe something was up with his sister, sparking his effort, but in this harsh world, the reasons stayed mysterious. After the day's grind, Ro headed home with his haul. In a shadowed alley, Ro noticed a familiar figure, lurking. Ro told the follower to back off, while Yasuke, expertly concealed, fidgeted nervously. Ro closed the gap and firmly grabbed Yasuke's shoulder. The startled follower let out a sharp scream. Stumbling backward, he clumsily knocked his head on the wall. Ro was surprised. This coward had some serious stalking skills. Covert tailing was no accident. It took skill and practice. Yasuke begged for one more chance, though doubts and exhaustion weighed heavy on him. Ro stayed silent, continuing his walk without looking back. Yasuke trailed behind, suggesting he might actually be useful, after all. Ro smirked. What use could a weakling like that really be? Yasuke pitched himself as a potential ally for moving Ro's goods. Ro frowned, unsettled that the kid had sniffed out his secret dealings. Reading Ro's grim expression, Yasukage launched into a detailed explanation of recent events. With some handy connections and discretion, Yasukage promised to be a quiet but useful partner. Powerless but valuable, Yasuke could help Ro avoid unwanted attention. Maybe teaming up wasn't such a bad idea after all. Ro opened his mouth to speak but hesitated, silenced by an unseen force. Suddenly, a loud noise erupted from outside. Even in this supposedly safe spot, an explosion shattered the calm. Eyes darted to a nearby rooftop where 2 figures stood silhouetted. One was Yasuke's older brother, the other remained a mystery. Beside him, a cloaked stranger floated effortlessly midair. The masked man hadn't planned on snagging a 7 Stars member, definitely a major catch. Shunshin aimed his hand, unleashing a strange skill toward his foe. The force messed up his hair and shredded his hood. The stranger wondered why Shunshin attacked without hesitation. No questions, no sizing up. Shunshin calmly shut his eyes, clearly playing a different game. Unfazed, Shunshin's indifference confused the stranger, a flashy villain who'd hustled for respect and teamwork. Cooperation? Sure, but only after Shunshin finished the job. Such ruthless entitlement felt fitting for someone claiming divine rights. The stranger found it rude but figured, hey, they do what they want. Shunshin launched the first strike, diving headfirst into battle. The stranger flicked a fireball from his palm with a casual flare. Shunshin countered, aiming to take his opponent down. The fireball met the sword with a violent explosion of smoke and light. Through the smoke, Shunshin's sword re-emerged, sharp and ready. The stranger blocked smoothly, expecting no easy fight. Simultaneously, a second blade sneaked in toward the stranger's ear. Shun followed up with a sharp jab to the stranger's cheek. The second sword slipped free from the stranger's grip, flying away. Quick as a flash, Shun caught the loose sword midair. The stranger's surprise was clear. New details about Shun just surfaced. It turned out Shun wielded a rare two-sword technique. A nervous smile cracked as he processed the unexpected skill. Meanwhile, Yasuke and Ro kept a close watch from a distance. The younger brother edged forward, itching to jump in. Ro grabbed him firmly, questioning if he really thought he could help. Bravery aside, rushing in would only lead to a quick defeat. Caring for his brother meant staying safe, not throwing himself away. Shun led the 7 stars, but the robed stranger's confidence raised eyebrows. Ro whipped out his phone, snapping a clear shot of the masked foe. Yasuke knew staying hidden was smart, but wondered if that was the only choice. Ro turned toward home, accepting they'd do what they could for now. Soon after, the two stood outside Ro's apartment door. Ro promised to mull over the offer and reach out once clear. Yasuke pleaded for a little more time. The door shut abruptly, cutting him off mid-ask. He'd hoped to join in somehow but was left outside. Inside, Ro dived into research on the cloaked stranger. He loaded every scrap of info onto his computer, hunting for clues. Ro studied each frame closely. Something had to crack the case. Then he spotted it, an odd emblem hidden inside the cape. Urgently, he reached out, demanding any info on the strange symbol. Half an hour later, the awaited call finally came through. The caller revealed it belonged to A-rank researcher Kaimori Aman, whose emblem featured his favorite cat. But Aman was confirmed dead last August, not just missing, but truly dead, much to Ro's surprise. The death didn't happen inside the dungeon but near its entrance. The body was gruesome, and the culprit remained a mystery. The caller asked where Ro had seen the emblem, sparking his suspicion about their real intentions. The caller warned Ro to avoid anyone bearing that symbol, unless mistaken. It marked stolen trophies. Ro couldn't wrap his head around what kind of war trophies they meant. Ro opened the balcony door. On the balcony, Ro spotted a mysterious man in white robes quietly leaving. The caller added the emblem likely signified a common victory trophy. Ro pressed for any leads the caller might have. Trophy stealing? Only a group called Cruz pulled stunts like that. The cloaked man was even more mysterious than Cruz's boss, known only as Z. Ro pondered this shadowy group. The girl asked to be put on speaker so she could catch the whole conversation. With the speaker on, Ro was asked if he'd heard anything about the group. Nana had mentioned them briefly before. Ro was told the group was an international mess of chaos, but fiercely united. A brief silence followed, as if someone was weighing options. The caller urged Ro to stay out and handle the investigation solo. Ro insisted on full transparency, no secrets, no lies. Rumors about Nana were already spreading and soon would hit the spotlight. Ro wanted to trace exactly where those rumors had started. The girl slipped over a business card labeled Daisy. The card belonged to an info broker, not shady enough to sell secrets. The caller had the chairman spill some details on the rumors. Ro nodded and asked to gather just enough intel on the trophy collectors. Nothing to draw heat. The caller wondered about Ro's next move. If Nana's rumors hit big, Ro would have to make a move. Their talk ended, and Ro hung up. The caller had been prepping since suspecting Koji reported Nana's death, but hadn't expected such tight secrecy. Relief washed over him knowing she wasn't being used as bait for profit. Some time passed at the training center. Ro kept honing his defensive skills without missing a beat. A sudden punch came flying from the left, catching him off guard. He absorbed the hit with his body, steady and unshaken. Just in time, he ducked, planting his shoulder as a shield while the robotic onslaught pressed on. Strange enough, the robots halted as soon as they got too close. Charlie entered, impressed by how fast Ro was progressing. Ro gave credit to Charlie as a mentor, who humbly denied any real teaching. After all, Ro had only been around a handful of times. Usually, even with Ro's physique, handling 2 training bots so fast was impossible. Credit went to the system's upgrades. Charlie sensed something off but chose silence over nosy questions, instead wondering why Ro was here today. Clearly, Ro wasn't here just to train. The room held a quiet tension between them. It seemed Ro's real mission was digging into Kazami Shun, the guy who nearly caused chaos. Charlie settled on the step, silently inviting Ro to sit and talk. The story was heavy. Kazami nearly leveled the whole city of Miku that day. Kazami's calm facade hit a deadly snap. His fight with the White Robe was just a warm-up. The White Robe was the only one to push Kazami that far, but how he provoked him was the real mystery. Ro probably knew Kazami was the top of the 7 stars, if his limiter wasn't holding him back. Kazami was unique. He alone wore a limiter, and without it, he'd turn into a lethal machine. Back then, strength ranked the 7 stars, with Nana topping the list as the strongest according to the records. Yet, rumors whispered Kazami was secretly the strongest of all. Ro found the tale intriguing, but that wasn't why he'd shown up or what he wanted to know. If not Kazami, then Ro was after the White Robe's story. The White Robe was precisely Ro's real curiosity. Charlie was ready to spill the truth if Ro had a good enough reason to hear it. Nana's death wasn't a simple dungeon mishap. Both knew this well before, and Charlie quietly agreed. Charlie had planned to use Ro as bait for the white robe, but now the boy could back off safely. Ro's confusion grew as Charlie carefully kept secrets hidden. Charlie warned that knowing the truth meant no turning back and a 99% chance of death. Was Ro ready to risk it all? The white robe belonged to the mysterious new group, the Saints, while the Seven Stars scrambled to pick a new member. Ro wondered why suddenly bring in a newcomer. Was it really because of the Saints? Charlie admitted ignorance about the Saints, only that their target was clear. Ro guessed if it was all Seekers or just the Seven Stars. Either way, it played out the same. Destroy all Seekers, then face the Seven Stars, or take out the Seven Stars first, making Seekers useless. The villains only had his codename, and like villains do, they rambled on with cult-like zeal. Basically a cult worshipping some dark god nonsense. And honestly, there's always been fools like that, no matter the time. Ro asked if the Saints had picked a shining light yet. Charlie questioned whether they needed a replacement that fast, even with a threat. Ro started piecing together a hidden trick from the Seven Stars. Nana wasn't just a shining light to Ro, she was family. The Seven Stars stood as the nation's strongest defense. Nana's death going public meant chaos for the country. That hit Ro hard. He finally saw the full picture. Charlie hated it, but it was the only way forward. Ro's anger boiled over, confused why everyone kept him in the dark. The association's job, find a replacement, and fake Nana's survival to avoid public panic. It was a long-planned cover-up from the start. Charlie warned that multiple nations had teamed up and were hunting Ro. Ro didn't care, nobody listened from the start, and it all felt like an unfinished script. Ro walked off to face his problems, while Charlie buried his face, making it clear he wanted no part. Later, Ro arrived at the woods. Map said this was the spot. Recent events shut him out of the guild, and self-study had hit a wall. This plan was his last shot. A small fortune bought the info. He just hoped it wasn't outdated. After hacking through thick brush, he found the portal. The Daisy Trading Company had seriously impressed with this hidden dungeon entrance. Without hesitation, he stepped right inside. Inside waited a watery cave, dotted with sparse trees and plants. Ro grabbed a rock and tossed it into the pond's center. Out of nowhere, a massive shark lunged for the rock midair. Luck wasn't on his side. Training here looked impossible now. Curiosity pushed him to explore more, hopping rocks toward the pond's heart. The shark wasn't done. Another attack was incoming. Ro caught the shark in an armbar and slammed her back into the pond. Never before had a fish annoyed him this much. Before he could react, multiple aggressive sharks swarmed him. Ro scrambled back to the entrance, but a shark blocked his path. A single left jab sent the shark reeling, surprisingly easy. At the entrance, he was relieved no amphibians haunted Erang's dungeons. He couldn't handle this many foes. Thoughts cut short as sharks began leaping from the water. The sharks landed on land, oddly standing on two paws. Ro watched in horror. Was this some twisted prank? Chaos erupted, felt like a fish cannery was about to open. Eventually, Ro was the lone survivor, lucky not to be dragged underwater. Catching his breath, Ro started gathering the rewards of his fight. Not bad for a catch. Besides meat and scales, he scored a handful of shark eyes. Rumor had it water monster pearls were great for skin, though who'd bother with such crude stuff? Scoring 2 pearls from these monsters felt like a solid win, considering even bosses rarely drop such rare loot. Ro pushed forward, stepping into the next chamber down the hall. A huge butterfly perched on a flower caught his eye. Maybe the boss? These butterflies went your garden variety, hallucination-inducing scales and poisonous to boot. Ro tossed his dagger with precision, aiming to take it down quickly. The blade struck dead center. The odd liquid pooling near the flower started vanishing. With the water gone, roots appeared, revealing a large glowing stone nestled within. Ro tightened his grip on the dagger, alert. Maybe the butterfly was just a distraction, while the fish swarm posed the real danger, armed only with a camping knife. Another clean strike shattered the crystal into glittering shards. Maybe luck was on his side after all. If this was a true boss fight, Ro wouldn't be standing. He crouched beside the butterfly, scavenging useful bits. A quick touch earned him Serendipity 1 PC, a hint at an unexpected encounter someday. After a bit, Ro was jogging along. Out of nowhere, Koji crossed his path. Ro moved closer, offering a friendly nod. Koji spotted Ro's daily gains, and, scouting for trustworthy teammates, planned an introduction. Koji promised to send some contacts soon. Koji's questions kept coming, chief among them why Ro was collecting dungeon boss corpses. Ro stayed silent. Dungeon patterns shifted, stopping dungeon sales. To process more corpses, Ro asked Koji for any leads on sellers. When silence lingered, Koji switched gears, curious about Ro and Nana's connection, and whether the rumors about her were true. Ro marveled at how fast gossip travels. Koji shared grim whispers about Nana's fate. Trouble for the 7th star always sparked panic. Dungeon rules were shifting, sending Seeker's guild into a frenzy. Ro tried calming Koji down, confident the guild would handle it fast. Nana's mission was almost done. They'd celebrate with dinner when she returned. Koji's final question was about Ro's recent whereabouts. Ro's reply? Hold up grinding through intense training. Ro dodged questions, quietly biding his time in the depths of the dungeon. Koji took it all in, his trust unclear. Ro's answers made sense, and his mood was solid. They parted ways on a friendly note. Koji went on his way while Ro watched him disappear with quiet focus. Ro briefly questioned his own strength. Would it be enough to rescue his sister? Later, Ro arrived home to find Yasukage waiting at the door. Yasukage's grin said he'd been waiting a while. Ro guessed it wasn't just a quick visit. Optimistic, Yasukage claimed the wait had only been about 10 days. Ro let Yasukage inside but coldly told him to leave soon after. Yasukage's excitement was contagious, pushing for a spot on Ro's team, as friendly as ever. Ro considered the offer but knew if dungeon runs were all Yasukage wanted, the answer was no. If Yasukage believed Ro was unbeatable, that was a misread, and the conversation stalled there. Yet, there was another venture where they could team up if Yasukage was up for the challenge. Ro proposed a secret business deal. Yasukage sells goods, takes 30%, while Ro pockets 70%. No questions asked, and zero leaks about Ro's role. Yasukage was game, skilled in business. Ro even offered training help if needed. The new partnership sparked genuine excitement in Yasukage. With things set, Ro signaled a pause. His schedule was packed and sent Yasukage home. Ro handed over a number, promising a follow-up to sort details. A week later, Ro hit the dungeons again, with Daisy Trading's intel stretching deeper into the countryside. This time, they grabbed info on 3 distant E-rank dungeons, scattered far and wide. Prime dungeons were hot commodities, rarely up for grabs. Pattern shifts meant fewer sales from Daisy Trading. Ro left without clear answers but hoped Kazami, his younger brother, might bring better news. Another dungeon entrance awaited in the bamboo grove. Out of nowhere, a bizarre snake lunged at Ro, who narrowly fended it off. Strange behavior for sure. Animals usually steered clear of dungeons, especially right at the entrance. Maybe the dungeon's shifting layout was driving the odd behavior, a clear sign of looming trouble and a call to act fast. Ro stepped through the portal without hesitation. The surroundings felt oddly familiar, like a warped version of reality. The scenery mimicked the real world, though time flowed strangely here. Without warning, a flying bamboo chunk launched a surprise attack. Barely on his feet, the snake swooped in for another round. One snake got sliced midair like it was no big deal. The other wriggled futilely in Ro's tight grip. Then came the curveball. A live corncob tossed their way. Monster numbers kept climbing. Escape was looking impossible. After a short sprint, Ro paused. Something felt off. Suddenly, monsters froze, acting like Ro was out of reach. Frustrated by the missed loot, Ro spotted a promising cave just ahead. Approaching cautiously, Ro noticed a strange figure ahead. Instinct said humanoid monster, rare and deadly, shouldn't appear in an E-rank dungeon, yet here it was. The grim fact, anyone spotting a humanoid monster never survived to tell the tale. The figure broke the silence, questioning if they'd met before. No system alerts triggered. Was this a new game mechanic or something else entirely? Ro recalled Nanana's words about monsters that test victims with questions. Answer wrong and the monster grows stronger. Answer right and it weakens. With no reply, the elf casually shifted the topic. The elf debated which one of 4 movies to watch, lamenting he could only pick one. Ro was baffled. The humanoid neither attacked nor revealed its stats. Ro struggled with E-rank dungeons solo. This foe was on another level entirely. The elf argued good movies deserve savoring, not binging. Ro wondered what genres caught his interest. The catch? The elf loved every kind of movie, making any choice impossible. When the choice got tough, the dice rolled in as the ultimate decision-maker. With all options equally tempting, leaving it to chance seemed like the only fair call. The elf was all in, curious how dice could pick a movie. Ro edged closer, knowing the fight wasn't his best move, better to play it cool. Ro tossed the dice smoothly, and the lucky number 3 rolled out. The elf cheered. Dice picked his top choice, even though moments ago he claimed to love all movies equally. Ro was puzzled. The movie cards vanished as the elf clutched a mysterious book tighter. Ro jumped back, wary of the elf's sudden, swift movements. The elf raised an eyebrow at Ro's odd behavior, while Ro tried hard to seem non-threatening and wondered about the book flipping. The elf revealed the book was for picking out a gift for Ro. Flipping pages fast, the elf searched for the perfect present. He settled on one page, tearing it out like a pro gift giver. The elf tossed the page skyward, offering it as a gift with a polite nod. The page floated gently, morphing into a sleek golden wristwatch. The elf warned that while humans can be kind, gullibility wasn't advised. With a polite farewell, the elf vanished through a portal, hoping for a future reunion. Ro was left scratching his head. Monsters handing out gifts wasn't exactly textbook. New item acquired, golden wristwatch. The watch needed winding to show status and could block a fatal hit once before vanishing. The deadliest humanoid, yet surprisingly chill, giving rare gifts like casual party favors. Who even was this guy? Time passed, bringing news from the capital and the arena. Ro's informant arrived on site, looking less than thrilled. Clearly bored, he had zero patience for rookies and questioned his own presence. A phone buzz made him check his screen, bracing for drama. The flood of missed calls spelled one thing. Another yelling fit incoming. Over 10 missed calls? That was a rare and impressive feat. Ro asked where the other guy was. Turns out, right in the arena during newbie fights. Formalities dropped. Ro dove into questions about humanoid monsters. The guy's interest spiked, guessing Ro had encountered a humanoid in the dungeon. Problem was, humanoids were so rare, Ro picked the wrong expert to ask. Info was scarce. Even the elite 7 stars barely ever saw humanoids. None of the dungeon logs the guy had collected mentioned them at all. The dungeon memo was a rare drop with accurate dungeon intel, prized by all humans and totally legit. That humanoid seemed dangerous but oddly unarmed. The guy wondered if Ro might have already taken him down. Ro asked if that was a problem. The reply, a major loss. If so, Ro had met Latias, a legendary figure. Lithias was a mystery humanoid with no clear profile, unknown by name but known for handing out rare loot. Someone who met Lithias years ago scored a time-freezing item, but the info stayed under tight wraps. Just as he was about to add more, a sudden arena noise cut him off. Newcomer selection always stirred chaos. Making real progress seemed impossible with this circus. Ro connected the dots. His contact was at the Explorers tournament. But who was running the show? Ro glanced at his watch and wound it up, activating its mysterious power. Instantly, a game-like info window popped up, displaying Ro's stats. It looked exactly like a video game HUD, clear and to the point. The guy explained the selection chaos, noting even the 7 stars relied on him to maintain order. Ro asked which 7 stars were competing right now. 2 stars were in Kalu Fischl and Tanky North. Fischl was on edge, and honestly, anyone in the guy's spot would be frustrated with these weaklings. Chaos brewed in the arena. The guy had to stop Fischl before he totally lost it. With that, the guy wrapped up the call with Ro. Just as he disconnected, a thought hit. Info on Latias was deliberately kept secret to prevent chaos. He hoped it wasn't a big deal and wouldn't cause trouble. Meanwhile, not far away at the Explorers Association HQ, official Charlie was deep in conversation with another figure. Charlie questioned if the other man was finished yet. Jugasaki Kai, the association chairman, asked for a bit more patience. Charlie had waited 2 hours while Fischl intentionally showed up late, clearly expecting to stall. Fischl claimed urgent business and said he'd given notice ahead of time. The old man assigned 2 tasks. Fischl had to train rookies while Charlie was needed for a special mission. Both Charlie and Fischl flat out refused to take on the tasks. Kai couldn't understand their stubborn attitude. Fischl thought training weaklings was pointless. They'd probably die anyway, but at least that was better than losing the tournament. Fischl's excuse made sense, but Charlie just said he lacked time and needed a break. Suddenly, the old man received a message on his phone. Kai ignored excuses and ordered the tasks done ASAP. He'd agreed to this 3 days earlier. Charlie tried to back out, but the old man firmly reminded him it was an order. Fischl demanded that if it was an order, Alpha should deliver it in person. Charlie questioned the rush and how anyone could pick real fighters from such a weak lot. It was a tough job. The old man either had no clue or some hidden agenda. Kai questioned who leaked info about Lutius. Hearing this, Charlie quickly agreed to comply. The old man needed their instincts and power to succeed. Meanwhile, at a nearby residence, Yasukage and Ro trained hard. Kazami Jr. ran laps but collapsed from exhaustion. Ro was surprised by Kazami Jr.'s weakness. Yasukage claimed he jogged daily. Jogging barely covered a few thousand steps. Ro urged him to quit training for now, success or not. Living admirably mattered most. Yasukage revealed he'd been sick as a kid, leaving his body fragile ever since. Still, there had to be a way to fix it. Kazami Jr. tried everything, hospitals and healers. Ro asked about dungeons, since they held countless rare items, maybe even cures. Dungeon drops depended on luck, and big players chased them. No one was dumb enough to report findings openly. Ro wondered if any trades happened. Yasukage mentioned a monster he could bargain with. Ro instantly knew who, but played surprised like it was new info. Just as expected, Kazami Jr. dropped the name Lutius. Ro feigned ignorance, digging for details on the humanoid. Yasuke figured Alpha of the 7 stars had crossed paths with the elf already. Instead of fighting, Alpha surprisingly chose to talk, his weapon rumored to be a gift from Latias. Others had met the elf since, known for handing out rare items freely and striking fair deals. Charlie shared info with Ro earlier but omitted fair dealings, maybe on purpose. The call from Iwe left things murky too. After thinking it over, Ro requested access to Kazami Jr.'s villa. Yasukage generously offered his villa to Ro, giving him a private spot to train away from guild eyes. He aimed to avoid debts or ties to the association, only buying his way in if needed. He tried hard not to mess with his little sister's things. 2 weeks passed. Ro came home to find his door busted down. Stepping in carefully, he noticed the door looked shredded, like cotton in a breeze. Ro scanned the place warily. Suddenly, something zipped past, grazing his cheek. A pencil-like object stuck into the wall behind him. Sitting coolly in a chair was Fischl. Ro wondered if this was how the 7 stars got welcomed. Fischl held up Nana's photo, questioning if this was truly her useless brother. Ro stepped forward, snatching for the frame, insisting on getting it back. Fischl claimed Ro didn't deserve the photo. Ro pressed closer, demanding it again. Fischl challenged, "What if I refuse?" In that instant, Ro threw a punch. Fischl caught the blow effortlessly, telling the weakling to cool his arrogance. He grabbed Ro by the neck, slamming him against the wall. Fischl questioned how Ro could claim brotherhood without ever visiting her grave. Ro recalled Nene's last birthday wish, a quiet day alone with her brother. That memory ignited Ro's anger, prompting him to grab Fischl's arm fiercely. Ro broke free, twisting Fischl's arm away with surprising strength. Ro swung a punch, aiming to regain control. Fischl effortlessly dodged, reading Ro's moves like an open book. Then, things took an unexpected turn. Ro faked an armbar, catching Fischl off guard with a sharp knee strike. Instead of hair-pulling, Ro aimed a solid slap to Fischl's face. Fischl blocked the slap but fell for another distraction. Ro followed up with a leg kick, but Fischl stopped it cold. Seizing the moment, Ro snatched Nana's photo. Ro wondered why this guy got to judge him. Ro let go of the ripped hair, demanding Fischl leave his home. Fischl was baffled. Last time, Ro was out of breath just climbing stairs. Still, Fischl had been quietly watching him. In that moment, Ro seemed fragile to Fischl. Why now, after Nana's death, was he suddenly tough? Before, Ro didn't care about the rumors painting Nana as stupid or blackmailed by him. No way she'd back trash otherwise. Fischl had always been the one risking it all to protect and assist Nana since her 7 Stars days. That history gave Fischl the right to speak his mind about her brother. Fischl stood by Nana's side, except that one fatal day. If Fischl had been there, Nana might still be alive. Protecting her was his burden. Even Fischl couldn't figure out why that day went wrong. Nana always said her brother was the kindest person she knew. Maybe she hadn't seen how cold he could be. Ro insisted Fischl stay out of their business and demanded answers about that day. No excuses, or he was gone. Fischl was puzzled by Ro's words, suspecting hidden motives. Ro didn't buy the idea Nana sacrificed herself. Nana owned a rare instant escape item, but Fischl was certain she never used it. Ro wondered if she just didn't want to or couldn't use it. Fischl pointed out such items rarely have strict limits. Fischl questioned if Ro really believed someone blocked Nana from using the escape. Fischl was sure Nana wouldn't betray her team and insisted there was no traitor among them. What if, though, someone else triggered a special item? Dungeon sealed on entry. A forced special item would spike the boss's strength twofold. A manageable boss suddenly becomes a nightmare. With 7 stars secrecy, it's either a traitor or insanely good enemy intel. Suppose no traitor, no enemy intrusion, but Nana simply couldn't use the escape item. Some dungeon lockdowns cut oxygen fast. No escape even if the core is destroyed, except via forced escape items. Maybe Nana gave her escape item to a teammate in need. Ro could picture that, but special items were incredibly rare. Compared to 7 stars lives, such items barely mattered. Fischl planned to join Nana but got a distress call from a spoiled higher-up son unfit for an A-ranked dungeon. Investigations revealed abuse but no solid proof of framing. Fischl suspected plots but found zero evidence despite digging deep. Fischl asked how Ro could be sure Nana didn't die in battle. Ro held tight to her promise to return. Fischl started to see why Nana trusted Ro so deeply. Fischl finally drew the sword he'd carried along. Unwrapping the cloth, a striking red sword appeared. It was Nana's sword. She always carried 2, one stayed in the dungeon. Now Fischl returned this one to Ro. Ro was glad to get it, but sadness lingered as he stared at the blade. That was Fischl's only help for Nana's brother so far. Ro wondered if the others approved removing the sword. Fischl shrugged off permission, insisting Nana's things belonged to the Gear family. Fischl slipped Ro a business card along with the sword. Fischl wasn't sure what Ro planned next, but doubted he'd crack Nana's death mystery with his current strength. Fischl wasn't buying Ro's claims and wasn't about to let him think he'd won the argument. Until Ro cracks the case, Fischl takes charge of him. Nana's absence means all fighters are stretched thin anyway. Ro was quietly focused on mastering the sword. That handy card from Fischl could be just what Ro needs to get serious. There was one last detail Ro needed to hear. Nana's successor was already chosen. Ro naturally wanted to know who it was. Yasuke burst into the cafe, apologizing for tardiness. Some street weirdo had delayed him. Kazami Jr. looked rough, but kept insisting luck was still with him. Yasuke had faced a knife-wielding attacker on Okawawa Street. No lives lost, but the victim had a violent history leading up to it. Ro sipped coffee calmly unsurprised. Dungeons meant weirdos were never in short supply. Life was tough for explorers and civilians alike. Putting sadness aside, Ro had called Yasuke for something practical, throwing knives and gear he could actually use. Yasuke pondered. Daisy supplied most gear, but controllable throwing knives were a different story. Yasuke promised to sort it out. Meanwhile, Kazami Jr. had a favor. He wanted Ro to help start a guild. Business was good, but a guild would help dodge unwanted eyes. Starting a guild needed just 3 people, and Yasuke wanted Ro to join as the last member. Ro preferred to stay low-key, and Yasuke promised the guild would stay under the radar. Suddenly, the TV showed all 7 stars assembled together. Ro recognized everyone, except one new girl making her debut. The cafe buzzed. 7 stars hadn't appeared together in ages. Some even whispered one had died. Their reunion hinted at something big. Ro studied the new guild member closely. Fischl had never named Nana's successor, but said they were the most innocent and pitiable among them. Fischl didn't push his views on Ro. This was the 7 stars' unchangeable fate. Fischl began to explain but paused. Ro would see it all on TV. His advice? Get stronger, strong enough to match the 7 stars. Fischl thought about adding that Ro would feel his helplessness even more, but wisely kept it to himself. Yasukage spotted Ro's rising anger over sister rumors and tried to soothe him. Ro held it in until his grip crushed the glass. Ro shifted gears, asking about Jin. Yasukage looked caught off guard, worried, and dodged details. Ro picked up on it and dropped the topic. After finishing coffee, Ro announced urgent business and a temporary leave, promising to reach out later. Watching Ro go, Yasukage shook his head, reaffirming just how unpredictable Ro was. Still, Yasukage understood. If gossip dragged on about his own brother's death, he'd probably be just as fiery. Later, at the dojo, Ro practiced sword basics while other students whispered, puzzled why their teacher had brought this odd newcomer. They couldn't get it. If someone wanted to get stronger, why spend weeks on only basics? Ro swung 20,000 times daily, then hit strength training. Couldn't he train anywhere? The teacher approached, noting how Ro's body had visibly improved. For 2 weeks, the teacher insisted on basics only. It might have felt harsh, but Ro followed orders without complaint. The teacher initially mistook Ro's response for sarcasm, then asked whether he wanted to keep basics or finally get serious with swordsmanship. Ro was surprised. The teacher had said basics were a month's minimum. Shihan suspected Ro looked like a brat who fenced just to look cool. Shihan said to speak up if ready. Ro agreed instantly. Ro braced himself, eager for the teacher's next lesson. Kamada Shihan studied Ro intently. His eyes flashed green. Approaching the sword wall, the teacher declared there was only one true peak in swordsmanship. Shihan drew a sword from its rack. With a swift toss, the sword flew toward Ro as Shihan shrugged off his towel. The speed was downright unbelievable. The teacher explained that speed was the ultimate edge. Master it, and even few techniques could win fights. Shihan challenged Ro to demonstrate his fastest move. Shihan's build screamed strength. Ro thought so too. Ro swung his sword fast, aiming straight at Shihan. The strike was sharp and focused, but Shihan caught it with just 2 fingers. Shihan asked what Ro thought had gone wrong. Ro pointed out that speed comes from power. Swords aren't thrown like knives. Shihan listened, intrigued. The teacher approved. The answer hit the mark. Ro now had a clear target for improvement. Ro's traits were solid, promising for growth. Yet training needed a speed boost, not just sword drills. Shihan asked if Ro aimed to overcome with softness. Ro preferred stability over pure speed, leaning toward balance. Shihan noted the boy's calm and humility. Good mindset, yet something felt off. A nagging suspicion crept in about Ro. Ro wondered if such instincts were truly a swordsman's nature. Shihan warned of many using dirty tricks nowadays, praising Ro's honesty. Ro appreciated it. The teacher joked about a meal and excused himself. Suddenly, the teacher recalled a spoiled rich kid hunting Ro recently. Better to lay low a few days before trouble finds Ro again. Later, deep inside the E-ring dungeon, Ro resumed hunting monsters. Touching a corpse, Ro collected some valuable resources. The resource list included meat labeled toxic, edible but deadly if eaten. Ro found the warning strange and puzzling. Moments later, the dungeon's core exploded into chaos. Normally, notes covered rare materials or skills, not toxic meat. Ro wondered why the change. Corpses stay in the dungeon but can be used there. Early explorers struggled with supplies, sometimes eating monster meat with deadly results. Everyone knows monster meat is poison, so why label it? Either they think Ro's clueless, or his skills have leveled up. Back home, Ro's phone buzzed, Koji calling. Still damp from a shower, Ro scrambled to answer. Koji asked if Ro was free tomorrow, hoping for a favor. Ro agreed without hesitation, telling Koji to relax and stay with his wife. Ro would cover the dungeon run. Koji thanked him again before hanging up. This mission might just crack open some new clues for the investigation. The following day, Ro showed up at the designated spot right on time. The gathering squad chief laid down the rules, no unnecessary moves, just observe and learn from Ro. Glancing at his watch, Ro knew the moment had arrived. Work mode activated. The gatherers stepped inside, faces lighting up with surprise. The dungeon was a narrow, odd corridor filled with robotic monsters. It was a tough hybrid dungeon, dangerous and unforgiving. From D rank on, hybrid dungeons mixing types show up, unpopular since they mess with dungeon logic. The robot monsters looked like the merge wasn't quite finished. Sounds of battle came from ahead, likely the boss fight. The squad leader ordered a resource sweep. Turns out nothing worthwhile was lying around. One scout scanned the tight corridor. No loot, not even in the empty rockets. Even the flying saucers were stripped clean. The leader saw Ro's calm reaction. Ro admitted he'd researched this. Unfinished hybrid dungeons only yield boss drops. Best to wrap up quickly and exit. The still dust hinted the boss was already down. Indeed, the boss was beaten, and the team took a breather. A tough fight, but success was theirs. Time to pack up and move on. A combat squad spotted the gatherers. Time to collect loot and wrap up. The final move, destroy the core. With so many around, Ro had to be subtle. Hoarding everything would raise eyebrows. Luckily, these bosses were rare. Suddenly, a sword plunged into an explorer. Shock froze the onlookers in place. The culprit, a mustachioed fighter who turned traitor, reigned. Mita, oddly, had saved Kaizuka, the same guy who attacked him before. The attacker saw it as fair payback. No long torture, just a quick lesson. The spearman charged in, sensing the enemy wasn't who he claimed to be. The villain effortlessly dodged the assault like it was child's play. With a slick move, he snapped the spear and dealt a deadly blow. He shrugged off names, preferring the cold label, number 19. The combat leader's eyes narrowed. Number 19 was infamous from the abyss. The Gatherer's chief planned to stall the villain as the rest targeted the core for a quick escape. With no other choice, the plan was set, and Ro reassured Koji he'd be fine. Ro quietly asked what the leader's role would be in this mess. The kid simply said leaders protect their team, no questions asked. Number 19 scattered the fighters. Only the Gatherers were left standing. With a lone weapon, the leader readied his squad, waiting for the perfect strike. The leader lunged forward, but number 19 barely blinked, wearing a smug smile. Number 19 was clearly tired of foolish bravery getting in his way. Finally fed up, the villain swung his sword with deadly intent. The blade sliced dangerously close to the leader's face. Out of nowhere, a red blade clashed and halted number 19's strike. Ro didn't hesitate. He jumped in, determined to stop more bloodshed. Number 19 muttered sarcastically, finally seeing Ro as a worthy opponent. Ro raised his sword and signaled the leader to take the others and hide. Number 19 stretched casually, admitting he preferred fair fights. Good villains have style. Ro pressed again about number 19's abyss origin, and the villain confirmed without hesitation. But Ro sensed something was off beneath the villain's calm facade. The abyss was a nest of ruthless scum, no honor among them. Their real trade was human trafficking. Killing was just their day job. Number 19 wasted no time, launching a sudden, relentless attack. Ro blocked the lunge, while 19 taunted him to stop hesitating and fight seriously. The villain scoffed, claiming standing still meant Ro was untouchable like a pesky bug. Then the fight exploded into a fierce, fast-paced showdown. The squad watched, puzzled why their strongest Ro stayed in the back. Their plan was clear: rely on the rookie and seize the right moment to smash the core. Number 19 pressed his relentless attack without slowing down. A stabbing strike came, but Ro dodged it smoothly with a backward lean. Still balanced, Ro snapped a quick kick to 19's arm. That move gave Ro the chance to settle into stance and counterattack. Ducking a strike, 19 finally admitted Ro was tougher and started enjoying the fight. Ro fired back that villains who talk too much tend to die fast. Trash talk, Ro hinted, was a villain's quickest way to the grave. Number 19's arrogance snapped. He charged Ro, yelling to shut him up. He insulted Ro, saying bugs like him belonged in the dirt, quiet and crawling. While Ro held 19 at bay, the squad leader sneaked close to the dungeon core. Just when victory seemed near, 19 abruptly shifted focus and charged the supporters. The leader shouted a quick warning for the nearby teammate to escape, fast. At first it seemed 19 aimed to kill supporters to protect the core, but it was a trick. Confident Ro was off guard, 19 let him close, then whipped his sword around sharply. Ro ducked without missing a beat. From that spot, Ro easily aimed a decisive strike to 19's chest. Before 19 could process it, the blow landed. Ro followed up with a powerful kick, sending 19 crashing into the rock. Without wasting a second, Ro charged the dungeon core and smashed it to bits. Checking on his team, the guy urged everyone to move fast and get outside. Believing it was over, Ro caught the leader's scared look and knew things had gone sideways. Suddenly behind him, number 19 smirked arrogantly, reminding Ro victory was premature. Ro barely reacted before the sword pierced him sharply. Instead of surrendering, Ro grabbed the blade with a tight grip. Teeth clenched, Ro silently told 19 he was the careless one here. With that, Ro swung his other sword without hesitation. The blade found its mark, slicing deep into 19's neck. But looking into those eyes, fear instantly washed over Ro's face. 19 muttered, "Too bad," with eerie calm. Then, just like that, he vanished in a flash of purple flame. Suddenly, the sickening sound of flesh being stabbed rang out again. 19 plunged his sword into the squad leader's back. Shocked Ro was still standing. Honestly, 19 didn't care much who died first among the insects. Ro, puzzled by the teleport, guessed 19 wielded a rare special ability. Explorer skills fell into 8 types: physical, enhancing, magical, defensive, controlling, auxiliary, useful, and special, with many subcategories. Ro's own power came from enhancement, boosting his body's abilities. Among specials, Shadow was the trickiest, letting users summon up to 3 clones, each packing 70% of the original strength. Finger snap in the air, 19 scoffed at Ro's knowledge but warned even one clone made Ro's odds less than 10%. And with that, 19 declared it was showtime. He tossed the assistants aside and made a cold deal to the guy. Live and leave, or everyone else dies, no in between. Stay, and the villain promised to spare the others. Exactly 1 minute was granted to decide. Silence meant death for all. Refusing to submit, Ro's eyes flicked to the open dungeon gate. The 19th quickly shifted tactics, hunting for a clever third option. A clone warned 19 that every move was being watched, no more tricks allowed. Rose stared at his terrified squad mates, torn and still haunted by Nana's unsolved fate. There was no room for failure. Ro had to figure out his next move fast. The countdown hit 30 seconds. Time was running out. The leader urged Ro to ditch them and escape while he still could. That bait ticked off 19 instantly. Sword-swinging 19 aimed to shut the leader up, but a teammate stepped in front, risking it all. The rest begged 19 to cut it out. 19 sneered at the bugs, irritated by their whining. Just as 19 prepared to strike, Ro shouted him down. 19 snapped back, only an answer would do, no chatter. Ro boldly declared he'd stay if the others got freed. 19 looked down, demanding a real answer, not some heroic talk. Ro challenged 19, questioning his confidence and fear. Annoyed, 19 jabbed his sword, calling Ro stubborn for ignoring survival. There was still time to rethink. Ro suddenly noted the exit was just 10 meters away. Ro clearly saw through 19's game. If 19 had wanted the supporters dead, Ro couldn't have saved them, and he'd have just made a run for the exit, too close to block. The deal was just a trap to turn teammates against Ro. 19 bet Ro would flee alone, leaving the others to fight. From the start, 19 planned no survivors. He just needed this scheme to handle Ro's strength first. Cornered, 19 grudgingly freed the hostages. Now he was set to finish Ro, no more games. And then moved toward the exit. The leader gave Ro a final plea to survive no matter what. Once the hostages fled, 19 lunged straight at Ro without hesitation. Ro focused entirely on the fight ahead. Facing 3 foes at once, Ro knew clones were tricky but less unpredictable than the original. The clones matched strength closely but moved with predictable patterns. Ro took down the first clone fast but barely reacted to the real threat. He did manage to block the 19's strike though. The villain seized the moment, landing a harsh kick while Ro was off balance. Ro slammed hard into the rock. Shaking off the blow, Ro dodged the next incoming strike. A clone popped up right in his line of sight. Ro flipped back just in time to avoid the hit. No time to settle, another clone appeared behind him, closing in fast. Ro slashed forward and kicked backward, juggling attacks like a pro. 19 mocked with a smile, easily blocking the strike. Suddenly, the clone vanished, throwing Ro off balance. The real enemy seized the moment, swinging his sword for a final blow. The attack first sliced into Ro's back. Then, a brutal kick sent Ro flying again. Ro slammed into the rock at full force, his sword flying away. This hit wasn't just painful, it was critical. Ro struggled up, refusing to quit. Exhaustion won, and he collapsed face first. Snapping fingers, 19 admitted no one had annoyed him that much in ages. Ready to punish Ro for his cheekiness, 19 prepared to strike back. 19 yanked Ro up by the collar and tossed him down near an open portal. Feeling unusually merciful, 19 decided to offer Ro one more chance. 19 promised freedom if Ro could reach the exit. Ro knew it was a power play, but quitting wasn't an option. His little sister was the reason to keep fighting. 19 crushed Ro's last flicker of hope without mercy. Sneering, 19 pressed Ro down, amused that the kid didn't fear death. He pushed harder, laughter growing louder at Ro's stubbornness. Summoning his last strength, Ro weakly reached toward the exit. Survival was the only thing on Ro's mind now. The sight pleased 19, even if it looked ugly. Suddenly, a new voice cut through 19's glee, asking him to move. A hoodie-wearing girl in shorts insisted on passing through. 19, confused, remarked he'd overlooked one pesky bug. She fired back she wasn't a bug, just wanted to head home. 19 dared her to kill him if she wanted through. The girl raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Realizing he was serious, she sighed, unbothered. She called him out bluntly, accusing him of being a pervert. Her bold words and fierce glare sent 19 into a furious laugh. He laughed so hard he felt his head was about to leave his body. One swift swipe from her hand decapitated a foe Ro couldn't beat. Sitting beside the battered Ro, the girl posed a question. She wondered aloud if she'd have to kill Ro too. Ro, struggling up, promised not to block her path. The girl looked at him, puzzled. After scanning him up and down, she asked why he wasn't moving then. Ro showed gratitude and, curious, asked the girl's name. The girl lit up, revealing her name was Kanatsu, and now Ro was on the hook for a meal. It seemed anyone who asked Kanatsu's name ended up footing the bill. Ro had no escape. So Ro promised a feast of meat once they escaped this place. That evening, they hit up a nearby restaurant together. Every time Ro ordered, Kanatsu devoured everything faster than the plates arrived. After demolishing another plate, Kanatsu threw Ro a cheeky, challenging look. Ro tried to order more steaks, but they were out, so he settled for 10 portions of whatever else was available. The waiter soon returned, arms loaded with meat. Kanatsu, the little meat beast, pounced on the feast again. Meanwhile, Ro started coughing up blood, much less enthusiastically. Kanatsu looked confused, wondering why Ro wasn't rushing to the hospital, oblivious to her role in his state. Right now, Kanatsu reminded Ro eerily of his little sister. Nana had the same wide eyes and a relentless appetite for meat. Offering a napkin, Ro gently urged Kanatsu to slow down and savor the food. A man approached, teasing Kanatsu for being gone so long, his hand softly stroking her head. Eyeing the meat, he shrugged off any tricks. After all, she had plenty of good food. Ro asked who he was. The man introduced himself as Okamoto Nozomu from an organization called Kyuka. Ro knew of Kyuka's odd reputation but still invited Okamoto to join their meal. That invitation would soon prove regrettable. Okamoto matched Kanatsu's appetite bite for bite. Kanatsu wasn't thrilled at sharing meat, but Okamoto promised Ro would just order more if needed. Ro couldn't possibly refuse such a request. Luckily, his wallet was ready for the feast. Within minutes, the pair had cleared the restaurant's entire meat stash. Okamoto sighed, admitting he hadn't felt this full in ages. Watching them, Ro figured Kyuka might just be a club for food lovers. Wanting to thank Ro properly, Okamoto asked for his name. Hearing the name, Okamoto raised an eyebrow. Ro was famous here as Yukonana's brother. Ro was shocked and asked how they knew Yukonana. Okamoto shrugged. Her TV fame made her impossible to miss. Suddenly, Okamoto realized time had slipped away. Figuring it was time to head back, Okamoto invited Ro to join him. Ro hesitated, mentioning some unfinished business. Okamoto warned that too much caution might turn Ro into a lonely lone wolf. Not wanting to pry, Okamoto still welcomed Ro to visit anytime. Later, they arrived at an abandoned building on the town's edge. Okamoto led Ro inside, telling him to make himself comfortable. The moment the doors opened, rich aromas of cooking filled the air. The scent woke a red-haired girl from her nap. Okamoto tossed the meat sack straight to her. She sprang from the sofa, snatching the bag with practiced ease. Seeing her alone, Okamoto asked where the others were. Yukini said some worked, others were still searching for Kanatsu. Untying the bag, Yukini found several servings of fresh fried chicken waiting. She wondered where the money came from. Okamoto said their generous big brother had bought it all. Yukini studied Okamoto and asked if they had met before. Okamoto suggested they might know each other. Yukini leapt up and locked eyes with the boy a flash. Squinting at the stranger, Yukini tried to place him. Okamoto reminded her she knew his younger sister well. After all, Yukonana was the genius who had stepped into her shoes. Yukini looked intrigued and questioned if that was really true. Ro, annoyed, wondered if she knew him too. She explained his celebrity status made him hard to miss. Ro wondered if his celebrity rep was just slacker or freeloader rumors. Ro's guesses were way off. He was known as Nana's berserk button. Nana, kindest of the 7 stars, never lost her cool despite public mockery, which made some think she was easy prey. Then someone crossed the line by mocking Ro, and it ended in his death mid-conversation. Nana stayed silent that day. Afterward, the rumor that Ro was Nana's trigger spread like wildfire. Yukini wondered why Okamoto tracked Ro down and brought him here. Was he hoping she'd heal him? Okamoto urged Yukini to be welcoming. Ro was guarded, and convincing him to come wasn't easy. Yukini was surprised. Nana had called Ro kind, yet he seemed cautious and different in person. Okamoto agreed. Ro appeared careful, always watching for a chance to defend himself. Ro clearly disliked being the topic of casual debate. His character wasn't theirs to judge. Yukini pointed out they were simply stating facts. Respecting Nana, Yukini offered advice. Strength came from more than hate. He should consider why his sister was strong. Ro thanked her but abruptly turned and made for the door. Yukini offered to tend his wounds but Ro declined, insisting he'd manage on his own. Alone with Okamoto, Yukini questioned his reasons for reaching out to Ro. Okamoto explained Ro seemed down, and he just wanted to lift his spirits. Yukini grabbed a bag of food, sat down, and doubted his explanation. Food prices kept climbing, making survival in Konatsu tougher than ever. She wondered if Okamoto was just exploiting Nana's brother's kindness for cash. Okamoto dismissed that, insisting the wounded Ro had been feeding Konatsu. At first, he'd suspected Ro was baiting her for favors, but that wasn't the case. Ro wasn't scheming. He was just being kind. Okamoto, trusting Nana's word, saw no harm in getting closer. Fun fact, Yukini had once vied for the 7 stars, but Nana eventually claimed the spot. Yukini bore no grudges. She adored Nana, which made her withdrawal after Nana's death all the more painful. That's partly why Okamoto brought Ro along, not just to heal him, but so Yukini could meet Nana's family. Meanwhile, Ro headed home, his mind far from settled. Ro's stroll brought him face to face with a candy counter. Childhood memories stirred. He and Nana used to marvel at cakes here. Nana once vowed to make a fortune just to give Ro the best life imaginable. Her goal, be the strongest and make her brother the happiest guy alive. Those memories echoed Yukini's recent words in Ro's mind. She'd said he wasn't the brother Nana described. Ro had no choice but to change, chasing answers about Nana's death. Just months into exploring, he was still new to the game. Experience was thin, but lessons came fast. Schemes, conspiracies, betrayal, he'd seen it all already. Still, he found folks willing to risk everything for their comrades. That thought drew a heavy sigh from him. Nana's memory washed over him once more. Nana's voice, sharp and annoyed, scolded him for overthinking. She believed he was too passive. Plus, his lack of trust was clear to her. Ro couldn't deny it. Something had hardened him, maybe too many dark sights. Nana had seen even darker truths, yet she held on to hope. She urged him to believe not everyone's bad. Courage lived in many hearts. Nana dreamed of changing the world, convinced humanity still had the power to heal. She wanted Ro to stay brave and trust in humanity's potential. A quick self-slap brought Ro back to reality. He hated the mess this world was, making him suspicious of everyone. If he kept this up, he feared becoming someone he despised. Changing the world, big talk, but maybe it was time. Without Nana, Ro couldn't stand this world much at all. He was sure humanity cared more about scheming and backstabbing than hope. Yet, for Nana's wish, Ro knew he had to try believing in people, even if just a bit. The following day, Ro wandered the streets with Yasukage. They ended up in a shady neighborhood that reeked of trouble. Yasukage's wide eyes made it clear this was his first time in such a rough spot. Ro glanced back, guessing Yasukage felt totally out of his depth here. Yasukage apologized nervously, but Ro assured him he wasn't at fault. Just then, a kid bumped right into Ro. Ro told the kid to watch his step. The kid admired Ro, guessing he must be from outside this rough place. And after Ro nodded, the boy bombarded him with questions nonstop. Satisfied, the kid asked if he could someday leave too, his mom said when he turned 15. Ro patted the kid's head, promising that someday it would happen. Hearing his mom, the kid waved goodbye and dashed off. Ro and Yasukage watched the kid disappear, thoughtful. Ro muttered sadly that none of this was the boy's fault. Before long, they arrived at their destination. At the gate, locked bars blocked their way. Yasukage stared beyond the bars, frozen in horror. Ragged figures lingered in ruins, their hollow eyes fixed on the newcomers. Madness and pain blazed in their expressions, pure despair. Shocked, Yasukage wondered aloud why these souls were trapped here and who ran this place. Suddenly, Ro gripped Yasukage's shoulder firmly. Dragging him back, Ro warned against getting any closer. Seeing the crazed old man claw at the bars, Yasukage realized everyone inside had lost their grip on reality. Rational thoughts were gone, only hunger drove them now. Yasukage wondered aloud who actually ran this nightmare. Maybe the Explorers Association or the Seven Stars, but no one really managed it. No one seemed to hold any real control here. At a nearby stall, Yasukage grabbed water and asked why Ro brought him to this dump. Ro sat down, curious about Yasukage's take on what they'd just witnessed. Yasukage admitted he never imagined such a place could exist. He'd known Ro's world wasn't peaceful but avoided the details. After a fight with his brother and running away, reality hit hard. Naive? Definitely. Nana once lived here, keeping things from falling apart. Before she joined the Seven Stars, the place was even bleaker. Ro agreed Yasukage was naive, no hard feelings, just stating facts. He knew the harsh truth but never cared to dive too deep either. The country was split into 4 zones, and this one was forgotten. The wealthy zone housed Yasukage's kind, the commoner zone was Ro's turf, and the slums, well, that was their current spot. That last zone didn't even have a proper name. People just called it the graveyard. Even Ro didn't know why folks were locked there. He told Yasukage to ask his brother if he really wanted answers. Before parting, Ro told Yasukage to rethink everything once he got the full story. 3 days passed. Yasukage stepped into his younger brother's room. Kazami Shun flicked on the light switch. There lay Yasukage on the floor, bundled in a blanket. Shun approached, half joking about Yasukage's latest rebellious stunt. Yasukage pointed out it took him 3 days to show up. He'd been waiting. Kazami Sr. opened the closet while asking Yasukage what he actually wanted. Yasukage mentioned visiting the graveyard and pressed his brother on why people were trapped there. The place was pure chaos, blood, corpses everywhere, and the living moved like mindless zombies. Shun explained that everyone there was a criminal locked away for life. Since the dungeons showed up, chaos ruled, and these criminals exploited it to their advantage. Yasukage probably found the whole setup harsh and brutal. Yet, he didn't grasp how deadly these criminals had been. Over 3,000 victims in Miku City, half lost. It raised the question, why didn't nearby slum folks help? Lock gates, or survival's daily grind? Simple, no one hated these criminals more than the slum residents. Almost 3 decades ago, the graveyard became the official isolation zone. Who supported it? Most just wanted those criminals dead. Amid chaos, the government chose life imprisonment over execution, for now. Killing them was the simplest option, and no one would have protested. After all, these people were society's trash. 30 years back, dungeons appeared and flipped the world upside down. Besides monsters, humanity's biggest threat became itself. Desperation turned people into killers of anyone nearby. Their twisted logic, if death's certain, might as well take everyone down. Meanwhile, the rest just fought tooth and nail to survive. No one was safe, killer or innocent, grown-up or kid. Survival was the only goal for anyone left standing. Today's challenge, a typical D-rank dungeon. This time, Ro stepped into an actual dungeon experience. A real dungeon mirrored the world's dark history. Intelligent beings aside, everything else stayed true to reality. Ro finally witnessed firsthand how chaos had unfolded since the dungeons emerged. Some had devolved into downright beasts. Ro decided it was time to clear out this mess. Sidestepping humanoid monsters, Ro charged ahead without hesitation. 3 more foes blocked his path. A lightning-fast lunge quickly dealt with the obstacles. Reaching the end, Ro halted suddenly. Ahead stood a long-haired boy, back turned, probably the dungeon's boss. At the boss's feet lay a murdered man whose face strangely felt familiar to Ro. Glancing around, he spotted countless explorer corpses. The dungeon preserved these bodies, keeping them intact until its core was destroyed. Why so many corpses? Was the boss really that powerful? Just then, the white-haired boy spun around, quietly questioning Ro's identity. No answer was needed. He charged into battle at once. Brandishing a broken sword, the boss vowed to kill them all. Rose skillfully blocked the incoming strike. He swiftly launched a counterattack. The boss effortlessly dodged, flipping behind Ro. Trying to finish him off from behind, the boss swung again. But Ro's quick dodge left the strike wide open. Rose seized the boss's leg, slamming him hard into the ground. Getting up, the boss muttered a chilling threat. Without pause, he lunged back at Ro, shouting wildly. This time, the attacks were easy to read, and Ro blocked them all effortlessly. Until suddenly, he found himself backed against a pile of corpses. Somehow, Ro dodged the boss's strike by a hair. What caught him off guard? The boss suddenly forged a second weapon. Ro barely dodged, though the blade still grazed him. It became clear no one here played by the rules, so he pulled his secret weapon. Ro threw a second sword straight at the boss. The boss deflected the blade easily, but it gave Ro a chance to flank him. From behind, Ro sliced into the boss's back without fuss. He wrapped it up with a classic kick to the tired foe. Catching his breath, Ro sensed something was off. That graze, poison had already seeped in. No surprise the boss's blade was coated in deadly poison. Explorers didn't stand a chance. Knowing the poison was lethal, Ro had to act fast. He spun around, ready to end the fight. Suddenly, his little sister appeared right in front of him. The blade froze inches from her neck. Nana reached out, questioning if he was really here to help. The boss smirked, clearly fooled by the trick. Nana's copy barely uttered, "I don't want to die," before losing her head, literally. Ro muttered bitterly, questioning if those were the same last words for all the victims. His glare hardened as he stared at the severed head at his feet. Post-battle, Ro's condition worsened fast. Antidotes would be a new must-have. From the boss's corpse, Ro collected 3 odd items: an invitation, an unsent letter, and a tear full of resentment. He tucked them away to study later. Rubbing his throbbing head, Ro limped toward a strangely familiar corpse. Poison slowed him down. He stumbled over a stray rock. Falling, he brushed against an elf's corpse and suddenly gained a mysterious... Ro blinked in disbelief. Had he just snagged a skill book from another humanoid? 2 bosses in one dungeon? That was new. If so, why were they clashing? Maybe battling each other was just part of dungeon life. The poison kicked in. Ro's vision blurred and time felt tight. He pushed to escape the dungeon fast. So out of it, Ro didn't even catch the system pop-up. The system flashed some weird new info he barely registered. Cut to 4 days later at the Kazami residence. Yasuke called the doctor, scheduling a visit when it worked. After hanging up, Yasuke walked into the room where Ro was finally awake. Relief washed over Yasuke. Ro was conscious at last. Ro croaked out a few words, clearly surprised to see Yasuke. Even more shocking, Ro was inside Yasuke's own home. Yasuke explained he'd checked on Ro, found him unconscious, and the door unlocked. He brought him home, treated him, and kept him since the apartment keys were missing. Apologizing for the intrusion, Yasuke reminded Ro who'd been out cold for 4 days. Yasuke wondered how Ro got such a deadly poison. The doctor warned he'd have died if help came later. Still, if Ro kept quiet about it, Yasuke wouldn't press further. Ro asked about the guild's progress. Only the name was left to decide. Ro wondered why Yasuke was so helpful. His brother seemed the perfect candidate, so what did Ro bring to the table? Yasuke blinked, caught off guard by the question. He agreed with Ro's thoughts. But the story wasn't that simple. Often dismissed as just Kazami Shun's younger brother or second son, Yasuke refused to live in anyone's shadow anymore. He once saw leeching off family as a comfortable life. Meeting Ro changed that. He envied Ro's strength and unbreakable will. Since then, Yasuke decided to follow Ro's example, hoping to grow stronger himself. Yasuke wondered if he seemed foolish. Ro's blunt reply was a solid yes, no sugarcoating there. Yet Ro admitted that honesty was rare, and maybe Yasukage lacked strength now, but that would change. Yasuke felt genuinely encouraged by those unexpected words. After some back and forth, Ro named the guild Jirai, and finally revealed the dungeon was where the poison struck. Ro admitted he'd gone solo and got seriously hurt in that dungeon. Just as Yasuke probed more about Ro's dungeon rank and exploits, a sudden call interrupted. Yasuke's phone buzzed urgently. Yasuke had to rush off, while Ro thanked him and promised to stay reachable. They agreed to stay connected, with Yasuke packing meds for Ro's next trek. Cut to Ro's apartment a bit later. Ro stared at pictures of his little sister, lost in thought. Silent hope lingered. He just needed a bit more time. Spread out the dungeon loot, Ro started inspecting each item carefully. Item details only appeared after exiting the dungeon, a neat quirk. First on the list, the undelivered letter, unopened until now. Another's content was left unspoken, inviting curious minds to decode and discuss. Apparently it was penned the day before that fateful dungeon dive. Maybe this letter explained why the dungeon boss fought so fiercely. Next came the terror of resentment. Use it, and all dungeon monsters would hold a grudge. Seems harmless at first glance. Side effects were massive, but wielded right, it packed a serious punch. Ro's eyes widened reading the last boss's dropped item description. The invitation forcibly pulls chosen targets to the user, but only inside a dungeon. This is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button until explosion. See you on the next video.